Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Caregiving Gen X Style. As always, I'm Steve Mullen.
As always, I'm Jennifer Mullen.
It's something you probably already know, but we'll say it anyhow to remind you. Caregiving is hard.
Really
you're
hard.
Giving your time, you're giving your effort, sometimes money, sometimes neglecting work, and that doesn't even account for the emotional toll that caregiving can take. In this episode, we're talking about what can sometimes result from all of that. Loneliness. But first, Jennifer, how's your mom?
Actually, Steve, how is my mom?
Well, let me tell you. So I went over today. She had PT, and pretty much everybody who could sit with her when she had her PT was busy except for me. Right. So I went over.
And let me just say, it's not that mom can't be there, alone when the physical therapist comes in or the occupational therapist. Just my brother and I like to have an extra set of eyes and ears.
Very good idea.
Always a good idea.
Very
so
good
anyway,
idea.
Steve to the rescue today.
And particularly today, though, because today was testing day.
Ooh.
The PT guy wanted to evaluate.
She gets an A, a B, a C.
Something like that. Yeah, he wanted to evaluate where she is now. And I have good news. The good news is, so what they do is he does a whole bunch of different things, has her do a whole bunch of different things, jumping through hoops, whatever, jumping jacks.
Not literally. Yeah,
not literally. Burpees.
But, yeah.
But anyway, and then he assigns a point value to how she does on each one of them. So when he first saw her, he tested her, and she was a 21 out of 56, which he said made her a fairly significant fall risk.
Yes, I would imagine so.
Today, she is now a 32 out of 56.
Nice.
Which moves her up to a moderate fall risk.
Okay.
He said each one of those points is a lot, really. Anytime you move up a point, it's actually kind of a big deal. So she did really, really, really well.
All right,
I was really happy with her.
Did you tell her that?
Of course I did, over and over again. I told her, good job. I mean, I didn't give her high fives. I didn't know if she'd want to do that. Might hurt her hand or something, but I told her she did a great job.
Did that seem to make her happy?
I think so. Yeah. I think she was very pleased with herself.
I'm sure she was. And I will say I have to be, fully transparent. I have to acknowledge a shortcoming here. And that is I have not been doing a great job of complimenting her in her progress. I'm falling prey to that. I know all the things she's doing, right? The things that she's doing right. I get nervous or frustrated when I see her doing the things that I know are not the right way to do certain things. And I just immediately go straight to that.
And I have something on that, by the way. Go ahead.
Well, let me just say, the interesting thing is, so I manage people as part of my job, and I've managed people for a really long time. And one of the earliest lessons I learned about being a good manager is I might be observing that an employee is doing all kinds of things really well, but if we're going to have a one-to-one conversation with each other, I'm just going to quickly say, hey, here are the things, maybe there could be a little improvement here or that. And I learned very early on in my career, that is not the way to do it. You can't just, right, even though I know in my head all the great things they're doing, if I don't vocalize that to the person I'm talking to, they don't know that, and all they hear are all the negative things.
They think they're screwing up all the time.
And I have not been doing a great job with Gagi. I have not been following my work style.
You need to do the compliment sandwich.
Yes, right. Tell them something good, give them the constructive feedback, then tell them something else good.
Exactly.
Yes. So anyway, okay, you were starting to say you had something more on that.
Oh, yes. The one thing, it's a bugaboo for you.
Is
a bugaboo. I know.
It's so weird that you just said that
83
word.
83 years old or something.
Yeah. Well, you spent time with an 84-year-old today, so there's that.
Did. I know you've been having a problem, and by the way, hi, Gagi. I know you're listening, but one of your biggest problems with her is that she flops down in her chair.
Yep.
And it's been recommended to her over and over again, that's not a good idea because you could miss the chair or bounce out of the chair.
Yep.
And she's been told by you, she's been told by your brother, she's been told by PT. Sure enough, when I got there today, she walked on into her little room, TV room, and flopped down in the chair.
Oh,
and I said, that's not a good idea. She said, I know. Jennifer tells me all the time. I said, but yet you still do it. She said, yes, I forget sometimes. So, wait.
Not sometimes, every time.
So, wait. While the PT guy was there, he was having her get up and down out of the chair, up and down, up and down, up and down. She sat down perfectly each time.
Uh-huh.
And I was starting to make a little joke out of it because every time she did it, I said, that's great. That's how you're supposed to do it. That's great. That's how I must have said that 10 times. And she was starting to get the point, like, I get it. Okay, fine. I was doing it wrong before. But And I brought it up again later. I was trying to help you out. Hopefully she remembers. Who knows?
Well,
who knows? But she was doing it well.
Listen,
she was doing exactly the right way.
And that is the thing. When I have watched her do it the correct way, it's very good. And I have tried to explain to her, if you sit in your chair properly, the way that physical therapy has taught you to, it is also exercise for your body versus just flopping into the chair. So for any of you out there who have loved ones who are just flopping into their chairs or onto their couch or onto their bed, I feel you. It's one that's really driving me crazy. And I keep trying to explain to her that it is all about her safety and building her strength. It's something she's doing multiple times a day. So she could be building her strength every single time she does it.
Exactly.
Except she's not. But, okay.
But overall, though, her balance is pretty good. He had her standing up in different ways, putting a foot here, putting a foot there. He actually even had her stand on one foot ever so briefly.
Wow.
Which I would not have imagined she would have been able to do. No. It wasn't for very long, but she did it for like a second or so, second or two.
Well, and I will say,
she walked around. I mean, I told her this today. 2 months ago, I would never have imagined she'd be anywhere near where she is right now.
Agreed.
She's doing good.
She has made amazing progress. And when I talked to her on the way home from work today, I said, I heard that Steve gave you an A+ for your physical therapy session today. And she said, yes, I did very well.
She did a great job. She really did.
So anyway, Steve, how's your mom?
My mom is doing well. I feel like we've changed places here.
We have. It's weird.
Just a funny little thing that I wanted to talk about. My mother has become a TV streamer. She does not watch live TV at all anymore.
Interesting.
And part of the reason for that, so back when she was in her old assisted living, she had a cable subscription and she asked, well, can I get Netflix? I said, sure. She could get it through the cable box. And I showed her how to use it and she did really well with it. And then she said, well, I heard Paramount Plus is good. Okay, well, we'll get Paramount Plus too. And she stopped watching cable and was watching only Netflix, Paramount Plus. And by the way, her provider at the time was Xfinity. And thus she got Peacock for free. So then she had all three of those. She stopped watching live TV, period. And I didn't even know it. I didn't know it. And we were going to talk about this a little bit. We talked about this a little bit in our pre-show chat. When she was in the hospital and in skilled nursing, she started complaining that there was nothing on TV. I said, Mom, you have 60 channels. You have 60 channels. She said, well, I don't have my Netflix. I don't have my Paramount Plus. I don't have my Peacock. And that's what I realized. And this is before she moved into the new assisted living. And I realized, I said, you're not using that cable subscription at all anymore, are you? And she said, no. And so when it came time to move her, this new assisted living internet is included, which is fantastic.
That's
by
great.
The way. It saves you a bucket of money every month. Internet and a very, very, very basic cable subscription. It's very close to what you would get in the hospital, like 60 channels, the basic stuff. But the internet, I said, well, Mom, there's no reason for us to get you more cable subscription if you weren't even using it anyway. Why don't I get you a Roku and we'll see if you can learn how to use it? And she's done great with it.
That's good.
Now, she does randomly add apps that she can't even use, and I don't even know how she's doing it.
She also sometimes buys things. And
she's not doing that anymore. Oh, here's a tip for anyone who takes their loved one down this road. It's on Roku. I'm sure you can do it on a Fire Stick or whatever, any of the other things that you can buy. I put in parental controls where you had to put a code in. I know. Wait.
No, I know.
You have to put a code in before you buy anything. And I told her what the code was.
Right, but made her stop and think about whether or not she was about to purchase something.
She used to do this with her cable box as well. I mean, it was in the cable subscription. It was attached to my email, and I would get an email if she bought something. And I'm like, did she really mean to buy that? And I asked her later, oh, I didn't know I bought that. So
that's a fair point.
She knows what it is. It's 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
She can remember that. And it stops her from buying anything. I think it has stopped her a few times from buying stuff that she didn't know she had to buy.
That's good.
So she's doing great, actually. But the only problem is occasionally the internet goes down. So I've bought her an antenna, and that's going to be her backup now.
Okay. Well, that's good. I mean, as long as she has a backup. But it's funny that you talk about that when she was in the SNF. And I experienced the same thing with Gagi this last time around in the SNF. every time I would say, once she started being a little more alert and maybe wanted to watch some TV, what do you want to watch? I want to watch Amazing Wedding Cakes. What?
I don't even know what that is.
Mom, that's on Netflix. Like, I can't just call. You don't have Netflix here. And to your point, right? There's like 60 channels in the hospital. I mean, they do a pretty good job. You get a wide range of everything.
You get the basics.
Right. Yeah, but like, which is a pretty wide range
channel,
of things.
You got HGTV, you get the sports channels, you get the locals,
everything.
all that stuff. Yeah.
But she literally, I think, no fewer than half a dozen times, different days, but just kept asking for Amazing Wedding Cakes. I'm like, not getting it, not happening. Oh,
so now
goodness.
my mom, so she pays for Netflix, Paramount Plus, which is great because then we get to use it.
I was just going to say that. Hey, by the way, for any of you out there, I mean, right? It's inexpensive.
It is. Or if you have it, they can use it either way.
Either way. But yes, we have benefited from that.
But she also pays for Peacock. She pays for the Discovery Go channel, which gets her HGTV and the Food Channel and, Nat Geo
all
and some other stuff
that ladies of that age would like to watch.
And I found some other stuff. We've talked before. She likes Westerns. I found an app on Roku that's nothing but Westerns.
Oh, my goodness.
I don't know how much she uses it. I really have no idea.
That sounds like heaven for her.
The only downside we've come into is she keeps finding shows she wants to watch. And I've taught her how to do the universal search, where you can find out what app it's going to be on. And she'll find this whacked out app I've never even heard of. It's called Hoopla. I don't know what that's all about. But I could not figure out how to get her.
Don't know what the Hoopla is all about?
Don't know what the Hoopla is all about. I could not figure out how to get her signed up for this thing. It just seemed impossible. And I said, look, Mom, you've got a lot of other stuff to watch. Let's forget about Hoopla.
Yeah.
Okay? A week later, I wanted you to help me get this app on my TV. I couldn't get it how to work. It's called Hoopla. Forget about Hoopla.
Okay, except that actually she did sort of forget about Hoopla and then came back and asked you about it again. That's a different episode, though.
Anyway, so the good news, though, she's a streamer now, and she does a good job with it. I'm really happy. I'm pleased with her.
Yes, I'm impressed. I'm impressed, and the one thing I will also say, like about the if they can get the hang of the streaming. I mean, Gagi has her favorite things at her fingertips at all times. Mm-hmm. Right? Whether she's watching Netflix or Sling or, whatever her favorite shows are, she can pull them up on demand. As we know, this is the whole point of all of this. But, for people who are spending a lot of time watching TV, it's pretty awesome if they can figure out how to do it.
She did say the reason I ended up buying the antenna. So, again, I mentioned she has a basic cable subscription, and that's available in her living room. But in her bedroom, the cable outlet is on the wrong side of the bedroom from where everything's set up, and we'd have to put a cord like over the TV, and she wants nothing to do with that because that's just ugly. So
she's very concerned about aesthetics.
She said while we were camping, the internet was out one night, and she said she just kind of twiddled her fingers, and she called the CNA and asked them to bring her word searches. She loves her word searches and any magazines that she had sitting over there, and she basically just sat, and I think she said she read a book, which is good because I don't have to feel like she does that enough.
Yeah.
But anyway.
All right.
So the antenna is going to solve that problem. At least it'll give her something on the boob tube to stare at.
The boob tube. Oh my God, you sounded really old. Between bugaboo and boob tube. What the heck?
I think I've used the word bugaboo like 4 or 5 times over the last 2 weeks. I don't know why. It's my word lately.
It's just stuck
it's
for right now.
It's my word.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, the idea for this particular episode that we're about to dive into came from a post that, Steve, you read on Reddit.
Yes.
In the Aging Parents subreddit. So a woman wrote a post that was titled, "Just Need a Hug." And she said in the post that she's living with and taking care of her elderly father. She does have an aide, apparently, who comes in to help, but it is just hard. Hard. So after reading for a while, I think it became pretty obvious to you, Steve, that one of her biggest problems is loneliness. Mm-hmm. She doesn't feel like she can leave the house very much to do things for herself.
Yeah, and she said things like, the aide would come in. She had a couple of different aides that came in, and one of them wasn't very self-sufficient. For instance, I guess one of the things the aides do is they'll start meal prep. And she needed instructions the whole way through. And at that point, what's the point of
Yeah.
the aid? You could just
Ugh.
do it yourself
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah.
And so she, this aid, while they were an extra set of hands, didn't really open up her day that much. And she said there were other aids that were more helpful. But again, like you said, she just couldn't really leave the house. And I totally understand how that could be bad.
Yeah. Well, we imagine this is, mostly a problem for people who are living with their elderly loved one. And thus it's not really been, a big problem for us, me and you, Steve, except during the times we've needed to be with them 24/7. I know that there was a stretch where, Steve, you were staying with your mom for about 3 weeks before she was going into assisted living. And trapped, I think, was probably a good word for how you felt at that moment in time.
I think I was texting you every night saying, I was going nuts.
Yeah,
I really
remember.
was. And I feel for people who were in that situation because, and I guess for me, I knew it was short term and it was driving me nuts. I guess if this is just your life now, maybe you adjust to it easier. I just can't.
Well, it went on, right? It's one thing if you go into a situation and you have an expectation for how long it's going to last. That's why some of these situations can be really challenging too, because you think, oh, they're going into the hospital. That stinks. It sucks, right? But then you don't realize until you have the hindsight of like, if only I had known that was going to last for 6 weeks, but also maybe I could have settled in a little bit more. And I do remember you during that time frame. And part of why it sticks out in my memory is because I think of you as being so patient all the time. And for you're patient and pretty laid back, except that then, I do think there were these moments where it was just really getting to you.
I was losing my freaking mind.
Yes,
I know. So I did find a study that was done in 2022 in France, of all places. I don't know why. It indicated that 10% of caregivers suffer from loneliness. So I suspect that number will be higher in the United States because most other countries have more systems in place to take care of their elderly than we do here in the United States.
I guess that's true. Yeah.
That's a guess.
That's why our daughter, who was on our previous episode, always talks about damn healthcare in the United States.
And
but,
she's in healthcare. She's not a fan of healthcare.
We
she's
do
not
also
a fan
remind
of how it
her
works.
there's lots of good things about healthcare in the United States.
It's true.
But anyway,
it's true. We have a
that,
very advanced healthcare, and there are things you can get here that you can't get in other countries. The problem is it costs $10 million.
Right. Yeah.
But I think there's a general lack of help for us caregivers and for the elderly loved ones here in the United States. Everything costs a lot of money, and not everybody can pay it.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. Assisted living costs so much money.
It really does. It really does. I think caregiver loneliness is one of those things that can sneak up on you a little bit, and especially probably at the beginning of your journey. Again, going back to the whole, you don't quite know what you're getting into maybe. And I think it can settle in quickly. You're in a go mode, trying to get everything set up to keep your loved one safe and as healthy as possible. But then as soon as things calm down a little bit, you realize that you don't have anyone to talk to other than your loved one, the person that you're taking care of. And I mean, even that, depending on what their specific situation is, maybe not even able to talk with them all that much.
Yeah, those conversations can be challenging.
Right. I mean, if they've got neurological issues like dementia, it's definitely challenging. You may not even realize it right away, but you're lonely. You're a little bit detached from the world. You're sad. You may even start to feel resentful to your loved one for leaving you in this situation. And if we can stop on that, just for a second too, if this helps anyone out there, it kind of reminds me of the whole misery loves company, right? But there's something to be said. I don't love that specifically. You don't want everyone to be miserable.
No.
The whole point of that, though, is that you want to know that someone else feels the way that you do. And I think anyone who has cared for someone for any length of time, right? And for you, for me, for my brother, and for a lot of people we know, years, really, over time, it's okay to have a moment or two here and there where you're frustrated and feeling resentful and whatever your other range of emotions are that come in.
Oh, absolutely.
It's okay to feel like that. You're not a bad person. And the way I know this is because when I have those moments, I think to myself, Jennifer, you're a really bad person for feeling like this. Except that I also know, I'm not a bad person. I mean,
No, you're not.
I just have my moments. You have your moments.
Oh,
My
I
brother
do.
has his moments.
Absolutely.
And, you know, that's also why sometimes my brother and I have to bitch to each other on the phone about our bad moments and feeling.
So you're
bad.
fortunate to have him to bitch to and me to bitch to.
Yes,
I
that's
have you
true.
to
I
bitch
got
to.
two people.
Exactly.
I know.
I have you to bitch
It's
to.
awesome. Yes.
So another thing that can happen is you actually self-isolate because you have friends who aren't dealing with caregiving, and not everybody our age is dealing with this. Some people, you know, their parents died early or their parents are perfectly healthy, and they, you know, you may have a group of friends who just don't really understand. And this is a mistake. So if your friends are truly friends, they will do their best to understand and support you as best they can. They will listen to you at the very least. Listen to you, as you said, bitch.
But
You may start feeling resentful of them then, because they get to do all these fun things while you're stuck at home with mom and dad. It really, the whole thing sucks.
it does.
It sucks.
It does suck. And it's, you know, going back to then I feel like a bad person because I've had my moments where I'm like, must be nice.
Yep. MBN.
Must be nice that, you know, you can do these things. And that's just, it's a dumb thing, right? Like when I sit here in this moment of clarity, like I know that's the dumb thing and it's very unfair because, by the way, can I just say this for any of our friends out there who might be listening? I swear, like, this is true. We have had the most supportive circle of friends who have listened to us.
Yes.
Bitch and moan and also go through all of the things that we've gone through with our moms over the last few years. And
I mean, Jennifer has even had to tell me if we're going to see some of our friends, okay, no mom talk tonight.
Right. Like sometimes,
no mom and they will listen. They will listen.
They do. But it is really interesting. In our circle of friends, no one else is in this situation.
Nobody.
The two of us are married in basically the same, more or less the same situation. And then our close circle of friends, no one's in that situation.
We have one friend who's had to kind of bounce back and forth with his father. He's had some surgical issues lately, but it's not quite to that level.
Right. Duh.
He
right.
has.
Sorry about that. Yes, that is it.
And there's been some family drama.
And some other family drama surrounding it. That
big
is true.
family drama we
That's
won't talk
more
about.
recent. So that is more recent. Not any less significant. But yes, that's why my brain went to, for many years as we've been going through this, our friends really not so much in that situation. But you are absolutely right that.
Can you say that again?
He's.
Can you say it again?
You are absolutely
right.
right.
Oh my God, I love those words.
Yeah, but I'm saying that only because I want to make sure our friend knows that we're supporting him.
That's all right. He doesn't listen.
Yeah.
So what can we do about all of this stuff we've laid out now? So the first thing we suggest is you go back and listen to our self-care episode.
Yep.
It's a good one. It's one of Jennifer's favorites, actually.
It is.
And it's closely related to this topic. And we've got some suggestions in there for little things you can do. Taking care of yourself is just as important as taking care of others.
Yeah, it's like the oxygen mask on the airplane,
Yes.
right? That is why they tell you,
my gosh.
put the oxygen mask on yourself first.
Yes.
There's a reason for that,
Yes.
so that you can then potentially
That
help
is
someone else.
Brilliant. I'm serious.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
That is brilliant.
Except you said that is brilliant. You could say you are brilliant.
What you said was brilliant.
All right, I'll take it.
Okay.
That's good. Yeah.
So aside from that, one of the biggest suggestions we have is to obviously get out of the house at every opportunity. So the Redditor in this post was the idea for this episode, and she mentioned she has aides that come in, like we talked about. She mentioned she'd had some problems with these aides. They weren't very self-sufficient, et cetera, et cetera. But if you have a good one, schedule some me time when they come over. Go get a haircut. Wander around Target or Walmart. Or just take a book and go sit in McDonald's like my mom used to do with an order of fries and a soda when I would come over to sit with Dad. Do whatever you need to do to get out, even if you're not going out and talking to people. You're around people. And that's important.
Yeah, I ended up somewhat recently, I don't remember if I told you this, but the former next door neighbor of our best friends who no longer live in this neighborhood, so I only know her a tiny bit. We ended up sitting next to each other a couple months ago at a nail salon.
I don't know anything about this.
You know, it was kind of one of those, we think we know each other, and then we struck up a conversation. Oh, yes, I know who you are. You used to live next to our best friends, and we chatted briefly. And so she then goes on to tell me that she's built this home in a place a little, you know, more rural from here, but in part it was to move her mother in with her. And so she is 24/7. So this woman works from home, full time, works from home. And then she's also got her mother there and like the beginnings of dementia. And just, I could see just the exhaustion on her face and just the, I don't know, just all the things that you feel when you're in a situation like this. And she was talking about, it was a very calculated thing for her to be able to come out and get her nails done that day.
Yep.
But that she enjoyed her time while she was at the salon. She's like, I just, every now and then, like, I have to get out and just take a break.
Did you tell her about our podcast?
Oh, I told her
good.
by the
Good
time I left the nail salon, I'd texted her the podcast, or I think I stood there and watched while she pulled it up on her podcast.
Good. Good.
So, yeah. Well, if you can't work, though, to get away from the house very often, which we know, that can be a thing, try to get people to come to you. So, sort of like this Reddit poster, right? Got to get aides sometimes to come in, or, sometimes when you're neck deep in caregiving, your friendships kind of fall off because you just don't have time, but maybe get your friends to come to you, right? So we're not talking about aides coming in to help you out, but even just have your friends come over to visit.
They're not there to help you out. They're there for you.
Right, exactly. Have them over, even if it's just for an hour to have a cup of coffee. You can get some companionship while also keeping an eye on the person that you're taking care of. And you may find that you have to be the one to organize this.
And that's a big thing, because some people in their friend group, they're not the ones that organize it. Somebody else always says, hey, let's go do X, Y, Z.
Yep.
You may have to be the one to do it.
Yep.
Or else it just won't get done.
Yeah.
Another idea, particularly if you live in a neighborhood or a subdivision, someplace where the houses are a little close together.
Or apartment complex.
Or apartment complex, of course. Sit outside on your front porch. This is something I started doing this with my mother during that long stretch of caregiving at her home that we were talking about earlier. And I found that she also, by the way, it really got her in a good mood to just sit outside.
Yes.
The vitamin D is good for
Fresh
everybody.
Fresh air, sunshine.
Of course.
Yes.
And, if nothing else, again, the sunshine's good for you, but you may find that people stop to talk while you're there. And we did find this because people in her neighborhood went for little walks, very short walks, because it was an over 55 housing development. But people were walking around. They would stop to chat. They would stop to visit. And again, I mean, if you're staying at your parents' place and they're in, for instance, an over 55 development, I mean, they may not be your friends, but at least, again, it's interaction outside of your loved one.
Yeah.
It's important.
It's the same. We're very fortunate that Gagi has a next door neighbor, so same level as her. She's quite a bit younger than Mom, but they have a little front porch stoop in their apartment complex, and her neighbor sometimes will come and ask Mom to come sit outside with her, or, usually one of us will be there to help her get outside, to sit. But, they just sit in their chairs across from each other on the little porch and chat with each other. And same thing in the apartment complex where she lives. Like, people will sometimes walk the parking lot. There's a lot of older, it's not a 55 and older, but there are a lot of older people there. They're getting out, getting their exercise, and they stop and chat, and that's really nice. Also very fortunate. Mom, over the years, has had a couple of younger neighbors in the upstairs apartments. And she has one now, for example, who's a young woman who's just started her career as a paralegal, just got a new kitten. She will come down and chat with Mom and her neighbor, and she sometimes brings the kitten. Tommy, I think, is his name. He's very cute. It's, it's a lot of good interaction. It's amazing what happens just if you get outside.
And it's funny, that particular act, when I was staying with her, of her getting her outside and finding out how, my mother is a little on the stoic side. Always has been.
No.
Yes.
What?
It's true.
I never knew.
But when you get her outside, I've just noticed she gets chatty.
Yeah.
She gets all kinds of chatty when you get her outside, which I still do this whenever I go to visit her. If it's not raining or freezing cold or blistering hot outside, we go sit outside. Once we're done ordering and organizing and fixing and whatever, all the other stuff we have to do. But I still do this with her, and it's good for her, it's good for me, and everybody's happy.
It's good for everybody. Yeah. Agreed. Well, if you're able to leave your loved one for a short period of time. So I think about when I and my brother were taking turns staying with Gagi 24/7. As she was getting better, And as she didn't necessarily need someone sitting in the room with her at all moments, right? She was starting to be able to get up and move around her apartment a little bit by herself. We just still weren't comfortable leaving her there, totally by herself or overnight. But enough that we could get out and go for a walk. And by the way, I discovered some really beautiful neighborhoods not far from my mom's apartment. Totally got lost, but it was awesome. It was like, it was a great thing. Kind of got lost in the neighborhood. Of course, I had my phone with me.
Of course you did.
I have no sense of direction.
No.
So if I needed to use the GPS, I could. But, you'd be surprised. Even for 15, 20 minutes, a walk to just clear your head. There were a couple times I know I chatted with you on those walks. A couple times I talked with my brother because that was a good time for us to catch up on some things. I like to listen to podcasts, true crime, because I'm a true crime expert.
Enthusiast.
I do like to listen to my true crime podcasts. And then there were a couple times I literally didn't listen to anything, but I really was enjoying kind of exploring a new neighborhood in the county in which we have lived for
a long time.
A really long time.
Yeah, a long time.
But, in short, I think the moral of the story is do not underestimate the power of some fresh air and sunshine, whether it's for you or for the person you're taking care of.
Absolutely true. And really, another suggestion really is to find a support group. And that's an interesting part of this world we live in right now is I think everyone can be part of a community, no matter what your interest is. The in-person type would be best, the type you go to a meeting and you meet people and you can talk about all your issues and such, but you may be in a situation you can't leave the house on a regular basis like every Wednesday at 7 o'clock or whatever. But the online type is a good alternative. We mentioned the Reddit group where, I saw the woman's post that got the idea of all of this. That's a pretty good one. It's called, as we said earlier, Aging Parents. There are others as well. Specific issues like dementia come up. If you're not on Reddit, I know not everybody is. Facebook. I mean, a lot of people are on Facebook. There are tons of pages out there very similar to that. There are also message boards you can find. There's a little old school, but there are message boards out there. The idea here, once again, is to become part of a community of people who are going through the same thing as you. Yep. And really, that's part of why we started this podcast.
That is why we're here.
Let people know you're not alone. There are other people in this world that are dealing with the same stuff you are.
Yes, we do appreciate all of you who listen and sort of indulge us, especially when we have some episodes more than others. Where, again, going back to my episode.
Jennifer Indulgent episode really should go ahead and just change the title.
We totally should. But it's very cathartic for us. But and that is the whole reason we started this. It was cathartic for us, but also very early on when we started doing this podcast, we were hearing from people, we were getting feedback from people who were saying, yeah, my situation maybe isn't exactly the same as yours, but man, it's good. It goes back to the whole misery loves company. I don't like using the word misery, but just similar situations. It is.
And sometimes it is misery.
Well,
sometimes it
definitely
is.
Sometimes it's misery for sure, but I don't want to say that's what it is all the time, but just understanding the trials and tribulations of being in this situation and knowing that there are other people out there going through it is definitely very helpful. And I think, one final suggestion that we would offer out to everyone, and it's one that we certainly have mentioned before, but that's therapy, right? Sometimes I think talking to someone who's not emotionally invested in your life can be the best thing for you. Fully transparent. I have definitely accessed this throughout this journey.
We talked about it. I did it once.
It's not.
I ended up in a debate with the therapist.
Well, you did about
yes. We won't say what it was about,
yes.
But we ended up in a debate. But it did help.
Yeah, and it is even though I like this particular therapist a lot and have definitely seen her many times over the years. She has told me that she appreciates, sometimes I will reach out to her and I will say, I need a little tune-up. And she's like, oh, I love that. She's like, that's great. Like, I am not someone who feels like I need to go every week or every couple of weeks, but I do need a little tune-up every now and then. And while she knows our family dynamic in a lot of ways and understands all the things we're going through, in the end, she's not really emotionally invested, and she can be very objective to offer really great suggestions a lot of times. So it can be easy to make excuses.
I don't have time for that sort of thing.
Right. But also, in this post-pandemic world, so many therapists offer virtual appointments. So that is an opportunity where you can schedule something. Maybe your loved one is in a very specific schedule and there's a time where they're always taking a nap. Or maybe they sleep a little later in the morning. You can get, a 7 a.m. or an 8 a.m. appointment before they've even gotten up.
Or if you're the type where you're trying to work while also dealing with caregiving, you could say, well, I've got a work call. Yeah. They don't need to know.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's a really good point too. Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, a really good point.
I said you're right, and you've made a really good point.
I know.
Meanwhile, I got what you said was brilliant.
Well, that means your thought was brilliant.
That was close enough. Like I said, I'll take it. All right.
So that's it for our episode. The woman on Reddit, by the way, I would have mentioned her by name, but Reddit is weird in that when you sign up, unless you specifically put a name in there, they give you some weird names. And I mean things like Obnoxious Potato or something like that. So I don't remember what her screen name was because it was something along those lines. And but I'm sure she will know when we talk about her that it's her. Because I do know she's listening. I suggested it to her in comments, and she listened to a little bit and said, oh my gosh, it sounds like she's really enjoying it and really getting something out of it.
Thank you so much for the idea. We appreciate it.
Thank you for the idea. You didn't even know you were giving us an idea for a podcast.
It was a great idea.
So anyway, thanks for everyone to listen to this episode. If you'd like to get in touch with us with a question, comment, inquiry about sponsorship.
Hey, Netflix, Paramount Plus.
We've already given them
Peacock.
Everything they need from us.
No, but
we talked about them.
Yeah, but they could now sponsor us.
Yeah, I mean, I wish they would, but I don't see it
We gave them lots of good love on this episode.
Yeah, we did for sure. And if you have an idea for an episode like Obnoxious Potato or whatever her name was on Reddit, please send us a note. You can email us at caregivinggenxstyle@gmail.com.
Our cat, by the way, is going crazy in the hallway with his mouse.
Is that
so I don't know if y'all can hear that in the background.
But you can email us at caregivinggenxstyle@gmail.com. You can send us a text or leave a voicemail. We love voicemails at 804-723-1221. You can find us on Twitter at GenXCaregiving. The place we are most active, though, on social media with this podcast is Facebook, and you can find us there by going to the show notes for this episode and clicking on the link. So please reach out to us, and we hope to hear from you soon. Have a great day.
Good night, everyone.